Hello, and thank you for joining us today in our study of the book of Psalms. Today we are in Psalm 64, and in this psalm, David is going to thank God for his help, but also give a little bit of a comparison between what those who are wicked are going to try to do, especially to David in his day, and how God is going to respond to what transpires. And it's going to be on one hand a level of thankfulness, but on the other hand a plea for help. Let's look at Psalm 64. Beginning in verse 1, we read, "Hear my voice, O God, in my meditation. Preserve my life from fear of the enemy. Hide me in the secret plots of the wicked, from the rebellion of the workers of iniquity, who sharpen their tongues like a sword, and bend their bows to shoot their arrows. Bitter words that they may shoot in secret at the blameless. Suddenly they shoot at him and do not fear. They encourage themselves in an evil matter. They talk of laying snares secretly. They say, 'Who will see them?' They devise iniquities. 'We have perfected a shrewd scheme.' Both the inward thought and the heart of man are deep. But God shall shoot at them with an arrow. Suddenly they shall be wounded. So he will make them stumble over their own tongue. All who see them shall flee away. All men shall fear, and shall declare the work of God. For they shall wisely consider his doing. The righteous shall be glad in the Lord, and trust in him. And all the upright in heart shall glory." As you look at Psalm 64, you have somewhat two different ideas being stated or being contrasted in this psalm. The first one, in the first several verses of the psalm, deals with the way that the wicked are going to act and the things that they are going to do. As a matter of fact, he talks about the fact in verses 5 and 6 that the wicked are those who are going to encourage themselves in an evil matter. And that encouragement is going to come by their synopsis of the situation, which is basically, who's going to know? Who will see them? Now, here, the enemies of David are not ones that are actually lashing out in a physical sense against David, but rather it is the lashing out of words. It is using words in order to try to attack David. And so you have in this psalm this idea of who's going to know. Remember, David's writing this in the days before there were recording devices and before there were means of being able to record conversations to be able to state what it was that was actually said later on, beyond just he said this and he said that. And so you have this idea of who is going to know. And even though we have those recording devices and all of those things today, there's still many people who look at the way that they talk to others and the way that they treat people from the mentality of, I can say or do whatever I want because who's going to know? Who's going to be able to prove that I did anything wrong? And there are many evil and wicked things that are done by that principle and by that mentality. Even in online scenarios with social media and things of that nature, you will have people who will create anonymous accounts and they'll do all kinds of mean and evil things because they think nobody knows who they are and nobody is going to be able to stop them. But the fact of the matter is, just as in the days of David, there is someone who knows. There is someone who sees, and yes, someone who responds. And so it is the case that in the latter half of the psalm, David talks about the fact how that God will come to his aid. And with that, he says in verse 10 that the righteous shall be glad. But notice they will be glad in a specific place. It's not just going to be that they will be glad in themselves or that they will be glad because all of the problems just mysteriously disappeared, but rather they will be glad in the Lord. And that it is going to be in God and God's help and God's preservation that they are going to rejoice. And so we have in Psalm 64 a moment of trust and of purpose, but we also have a moment of recognition that the wicked are not just going to magically go away. There are always going to be those who are going to want to do what is wrong and are going to seek to hurt those who are trying to do what is right. But our trust and our faith is in God. And that with that, we have a reason to rejoice because He is watching over us. He will take care of us. It doesn't mean that bad things aren't going to happen from time to time. But when they do, we have someone to whom we can turn for help, just as David does in Psalm 64. These are the things that I found in this psalm. I hope that they're helpful to you. Next time, we'll come back and we will begin looking at Psalm 65. I hope that you'll join us then. But until then, have a great day.